Welcome back to the Andrew Finney Show, where we help you make sense of real estate. I'm your host, Andrew Finney with King Realty Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada. A couple of quick ground rules as we get going. Number one, this is a safe place, so please be respectful and polite. Number two, there is no such thing as a stupid question. If you're thinking it, it's on your mind, please feel free to ask away. What we'll do as we move forward throughout the live stream is we'll go over a book a week, then we'll go over a question that really stood out to me over the past week that came in from our subscribers and also live here in real time in Las Vegas with questions that people ask. Then we'll go over the questions that came in over the past week, and of course, we'll answer your questions live. So let's go ahead and get into it with the book of the week. The book of the week is called Stealing Fire. Stealing Fire is a book that has another little side part of it, kind of giving you an idea of what it's about. And it's how Silicon Valley, the Navy SEALs, and Maverick scientists are revolutionizing the way that we live and work by Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheal. One of the really fascinating things about Stealing Fire is they're really talking about what motivates us as people and how do we learn things as people to achieve greatness. What are the states that we should be in? Some people would call this flow. Some people would call this like a state of ecstasy. But essentially what happens with what's going on with a lot of scientists and a lot of programmers and even pharmaceutical companies is they're looking at ways to manipulate us as humans with releasing dopamine, serotonin, and different like endorphins, different chemicals that are natural to our body by giving us stimulus. The stimulus I would like you to think of is something that a lot of us would know about, either a movie or a video game that you really, really like. It might come as a surprise to you, but a lot of these bigger companies have teams of neuroscientists and behavioral scientists reviewing a certain heartbeat pressure, a heart pressure that you have at a certain stimulus point within the game to keep it engaging to you so that it makes you want to watch or make you want to play it more. The same thing is true of movies. So it's like a form of manipulation to try to get you to spend more money is what it really comes down to. But what are the lessons that we could learn from a Stealing Fire? We could learn how best to trick ourselves or gear ourselves or gamify the way that we live, the way that we work, and the way that we play to make us even more successful by learning the states that of essentially like states of arousal that get us excited about what we do. It goes back to the reasons why we are doing the things that we do and how we can do it going forward. I just found it an absolutely fantastic and really insightful book that I wanted to share with you. I've listened to the book now 3 times on Audible. I have the name of the book in the show more description below if you want to go back to it and see if it's right for you. All the same, I think that you'll find it fairly fascinating with the things that go on and what the authors of that book shared with us. So let's go ahead and go into the question that really stood out to me this past week. What happened is that one of our subscribers had reached out to me in the comment section and she was getting ready to close on a house this past week. And she had shared with me that her real estate agent wasn't exactly doing their thing, especially when it came down to the final walkthrough. There were some repair items that were requested from the seller to be made, especially as it pertained to the HVAC system that should have been done. And she wasn't sure if it got done or if it was working. And she was really hesitant to close without doing a final walkthrough that makes sense of that. So I actually know who she is because she's reached out to me previously directly. So I immediately called her to say hello and see what the situation was. So what you want to do if you find yourself in a situation with a bad agent that's not doing their job, number one, you want to contact their broker and let the broker know what's going on. Number two, you want to also have the same conversation with your loan officer and the title company. Now, between the broker, the lender, and the title company, they can ensure that everything gets done correctly or they don't close. Because obviously the escrow officer is actually a neutral third party to the transaction that is there to represent the best interest of the clients, but as a neutral party. If they have an issue on one side of the house, whether it's the listing or buying side of the house, they'll immediately put on the brakes and try to resolve the issue. A lender with the same information, if they know that the buyer doesn't want to fund on the house right away, is going to find out why, and then the lender is going to jump down on the real estate agent in that situation. It's very unfortunate that she found that herself in that situation, yet we had the conversation 2 days before she was getting ready to close, and she was able to do her walkthrough by following that advice, and she later thanked me in another comment, I believe it was on yesterday's video, about that situation. But I want you to know this. If you're in contract and you requested repairs to be made of the seller, especially like with an HVAC system or something that requires a professional skill or trade, then what you would like to have your buyer agent do is in the repair request itself, say that you would like to have the receipts for that work that's done on those items, in this case, the HVAC system. Have a receipt written from the HVAC technician that did the work saying what they did and how much it cost, and obviously it should have their company information on it. Now, if you have a copy of that receipt in your what begins your homeowner journal as the buyer of that property, then you know who to go back to if there's another problem. At the same time, you also have the peace of mind of knowing that that property, knowing that that item was addressed by a licensed professional. It's extremely important to know these things, and it's something that should have been done well ahead of time before you got that far into the closing process. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you always have the option of a home re-inspection if you want to get that done. After the listing agent says the work has been done, then your buyer agent can contact your home inspector and set up another inspection to ensure that you have peace of mind and clarity knowing what's going on there. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable and confident every step of the way. So please think about that as you move forward through the closing process and make sure that you're having your agent represent your best interest and that you're completely comfortable and confident as you move forward to closing. I see a couple of comments that came in. Bobby Curtis, thank you so much for joining us today. He says, do you answer questions during a segment? Yes, Bobby, that's what we're doing right now. Answer it during the live sessions every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have on your mind, and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Gina Contreras, thank you so much for being here today. Gina says, what are some reasonable repair request examples? Gina, that's a great question. So going back to like an HVAC system, right? It's an extremely reasonable thing that if the HVAC is not cooling or if it's not heating correctly, the request has to be done. Another thing that would be completely reasonable if you see a situation with like the garage door not opening and closing. That's another thing that should be tended to. Another thing that could be a reasonable request, there's so many of them, Gina, to be honest with you. But another thing is what happens if you have a leaky faucet. Now, some sellers are going to be amenable to the idea of fixing the leaky faucet, but if it's a problem, then it should be fixed. So in practice, what we do is we want to take a look at that home inspection report and review it with you, the buyer, to see what you would like to get requested. Normally, the things that aren't going to be requested are those items like a cosmetic item. A lot of homes, given the age of them, may have what are called settling cracks in the house. Now, if it's a settling crack, it is pretty easy to fix them. At the same time, it is a cosmetic issue. So when we're looking at the meat and potatoes, essentially, of a home inspection report, we want to get things addressed. Like if there's a hole in the roof or the roof is showing that it's leaking, the home inspector will notify you if they believe that to be the case. That is absolutely reasonable, even though it could be potentially a big ticket item. It is absolutely reasonable to request it. I have done so in buyer representation many times and actually had the work performed on the house to have the roof either patched or replaced in that area that it needed to be fixed, because it is important to the prospective buyer to make sure that their house is protected, obviously, from the elements, and in this case, rain or water that gets onto the roof. So it's absolutely reasonable. So what you want to do, Gina, is you really want to have that conversation with your trusted real estate advisor after you get the home inspection request, identify the things that are most important to you, and then put together a request going to the seller. What I would like you to keep in mind is that a repair request is a what? It's a request. Does that mean the seller has to fix everything in the request? No, it doesn't. Would it be nice if they did so? Of course it would be nice if they did it. But it's not every seller is going to have the financial ability or the time involved to fix it. Sometimes what a seller will do is they will offer a buyer credit towards a buyer closing cost in lieu of the inspection, or in lieu of the repairs for the property itself. So there's all kinds of different ways to negotiate this. It's a matter of you getting up with your trusted real estate advisor and making a well-informed decision that's right for you, that keeps you comfortable and confident, or saying, hey, you know what, maybe this isn't the house for me if I can't live with these things, or if I don't want to fix them, these things myself, maybe I need to look at trying to back out of this contract and just understand the pros and cons of doing that as well. Because if it's a little bit of home maintenance, we're going to be ending up doing it anyways when we become homeowners. But if we're able to get the seller to fix it up front, all the better. And a lot of sellers are pretty amenable to this, so long as they're not being taken, or they feel like they're being taken for nothing, right? Being taken for everything, and it's not nitpicky. A lot of them are happy to get it done. Now, there are items in a repair request that come up from a home inspection that must be fixed pursuant to the loan type that prospective buyer might actually have. So it's important to note that some of those things would be an HVAC system, like here in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can't close on a home with a financed offer if the AC is not functioning because obviously we live in a desert. There's other parts of the country you may not be able to close on a home unless the heater or the furnace is working because it's so cold. It's a requirement underneath what's called health and safety conditions of the loan type itself. So it's important to make note of that with your trusted real estate advisor and know what the things are that are most important that the seller must fix or must be done prior to closing if the seller wants to sell that property, and those things that would be nice to fix if the seller has the ability to do it. Really good question, Gina, and I'm super happy that you brought that up. Thank you. So let's move into some of the comments that came in over the past 7 days. We had Nepal Patel that had watched 9 questions to ask your mortgage lender. And Nepal says, thank you for posting this video. As everyone knows how challenging the home buying process and all the steps involved in it is, but with guidance and tips, it relieves a lot of the pressure that I can see as a first-time home buyer. We will be buying our first home, so your tips and advice is very helpful to me. I'm going to ask all these questions to the lenders to shop loans. I liked all your questions. All I would say is keep up the good work and educate people like us. Have a great day. Now, Paul, thank you so much for watching that video and for your support. Greatly appreciate it, and I'm glad that you took those questions to heart. You'll find yourself shopping for your loan in the best of ways and getting the best terms and rates on your deal moving forward. Bobby says, thank you for your information. You are very thorough when answering questions. Keep up the good work. Bobby, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. It stems from a passion of just wanting to help people and helping people make sense of real estate in the case of this channel. So if you think of any questions or you have any ideas for videos I have not already made, please let me know, and please do feel free to hit me up directly. My contact information is always in the show more description. Gina says, thank you. Can you explain how the foreclosure process is different when buying a property on a realtor's point of view? Okay, so that's a really interesting question. So what's fun, sometimes what happens with the comments that come in on the channel and the questions like this in the live stream is you'll ask a question that seems like it might be a little bit easy to answer, but there's so many variables that go into it. This is an example as one. Now, I as a trusted real estate advisor don't really care if it's a foreclosure, a short sale, a traditional sale, new construction, what have you. I've worked with a lot of different people, over 130 people at this point in my real estate career over the last 5.5 years. I've represented them with every loan type there is except for USDA. And that's because Las Vegas is not exactly a rural area of the United States, and it's not available in Las Vegas area directly in the city. It might be available in some of the outskirts areas. At the same time, I've not worked with anybody on the outskirts since I have really no need to leave the Las Vegas Valley area itself. That being said, there have been townhomes, condos, single-family homes, multifamily homes. There's been a lot of different things. When you look at a foreclosure, Gina, it's important to know what's the current market conditions and trends and how are the banks responding to the foreclosure process themselves. It's a bigger issue for the buyer if the bank is going to be holding on to fair market value and if the house is not in a good condition. Now, some of the foreclosures are in good condition and they're really not going to take that much to fix up, if anything, given whatever the state was whenever they foreclosed on the property and if the listing agent had gone in and put money into it. Now, we as agents, when we list a foreclosure property, it's an entirely different listing process where we are on the hook for the money that goes into the property up front to trash it out, clean it up, and get it into a marketable condition. Now, the bank will reimburse us with time. At the same time, we have to have the money on hand to keep this up and keep it going. From a buyer agent perspective, it's really not going to be too much of a different of a process. Again, it really affects the buyer because there's going to be about a 10-page addendum the bank is going to want you to sign. That's almost given up like your firstborn of sorts because they're going to sell that property in as-is condition. That being said, if they're open up to like a VA or FHA loan, they will have to make certain repairs on the property if it's not already been done. They know that they're going to have to do this. At the same time, they're not going to be the mindset to do anything more to a property. So going back to our leaky faucet example, yeah, they're probably not going to do that. So it's important to know what they are going to do and what they're not going to do. And it's also important to know, are they listed at the fair market value? Are they negotiable? Are they not negotiable? There was a time in real estate here just a few years ago, like in between 2010 and 2014-ish, you could get a really good shake on a foreclosure property if you were willing to do some of the home renovations that were needed on those properties, meaning that you could get them for like 10, 15, 20% under whatever they were listed at. And oftentimes you'll find that foreclosure properties, even in today's market, are listed, normally they're listed at a certain list price to take into account any work that needs to be done. So sometimes they're less than other traditional properties that are in better condition. That being said, from a realtor's point of view, it's just a few more paperwork. That's it. It's a few more things to educate you about and walk you through to make sure that you know what you're doing, and also to ensure that you're happy and comfortable with the process. It really doesn't have that big of a difference. A short sale is a different story. Now, it really depends on where the market's at, but you didn't ask me about a short sale, so I'm not going to go into that because I have made entire videos just about short sales, because those can be a very involved process and can be very tricky depending on the situations involved with them. Great question, Gina, by the way. Thank you for such a wonderful question. HH says, hello again. When communities are being developed, is it hard to get lenders for these homes in the early stages of the build? Thanks as always for your help. Will you have to use the builder's lenders, or can you find someone? Hey, HH, so you're asked a couple of different questions there, and they're both really fantastic questions. Thank you for bringing it up. So first of all, whenever it comes to you as a buyer, you have choice of lender, whether you're buying new construction, traditional, or what have you. Now, the trade-off on this is that many builders will have preferred lenders that they work with. And oftentimes those preferred lenders they work with, depending on the size of the builder, actually they might own some or all of that lending company. Hence why they like to try to keep it all in-house, because they make a bigger profit on it. Now, the trade-off in between having your own local loan officer your own local loan officer give you the loan for that property and working with the builder's lender is that most of the builders will try to entice you, the buyer, to work with their preferred lender by offering you incentives. Now, those incentives are often applied towards your buyer closing costs. They're applied towards incentives to the design studio or some other credits that they might be willing to extend to a prospective buyer for using the preferred lender. Now, it's up to you if you're comfortable with that situation. It is also important to note that if a builder is offering you different incentives to use their preferred lender, you want to definitely get at least a second opinion from another local loan officer, because here's the thing, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen, and that's why I'm bringing this up. Sometimes what will happen is the lender will increase the rate a little bit higher than what you could have got had you not accepted the incentives. And the reason they would do this is to make up the money they're giving you up front. They'll make it up on the back end. But when you're looking at 15 or 30-year fixed rate mortgage and you amortize it out over that time period, you're paying a lot more money than you are saving up front. Now, sometimes this makes sense to people, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on one's financial position and situation, whether they're comfortable with letting the money go up front, or if they want to essentially finance it into their loan for those incentives. Now, again, sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not the case, but it is a question that you want to know, and the best way to verify is having a second opinion from a local loan officer. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you reserve right, regardless of what they say, you reserve the right to work with your own buyer agent, which I always highly recommend, so that you have somebody that's on your side representing your best interest through the process. And you also reserve the right to have your own loan officer outside of the builder that can do that. Now, it's just the builder's just not going to give you the incentives in that case, unless they might be a secondary or tertiary preferred lender of that builder. There are a lot of really good local loan officers that will try to make good relationships with builders to be on their list of preferred lenders if their primary lender cannot come through on that. So that's a really good question, and there's a lot of stuff going on with that. But at the end of the day, you as a buyer have choice to ensure that you have your own buyer agent. Sometimes people think, oh, well, there's an agent in the office, they're going to represent me in my best interest. Well, it's important to know that the agent in the new home build office actually is an employee of the builder in many cases. So if they're an employee of the builder, whose best interest are they most focused with? I mean, it's kind of common sense here, right? They're going to be working for the builder. At the same time, if you have your own buyer agent, they can help keep the situation honest, and they can help keep the situation if there is a negotiation that could be had. Right now we're in market stabilization point as we're shooting this live stream today. So in conversation with different new builders, some of the families I'm working with in new construction right now, we've been able to negotiate down off of the base price, and we're being able to negotiate certain other incentives into the terms of the contract, because the market is stabilizing. When the market's in a hot seller's market, that's when those builders are very resistant to give any incentives, if at all. But how are you going to know unless you have somebody that's asking those questions? And how are you going to be able to watch the process if it's your first time that you've been through one of these? Working with an agent that knows the new construction process and knows what to look for is going to be massively beneficial. And then let's face it, when you're working with a buyer agent, you're not paying anything out of pocket. You might pay a buyer transaction fee, a broker transaction fee to the real estate agent's broker, but at the same time, it's going to be very, very minuscule, oftentimes somewhere between $400 and $1,000 as compared to what it could cost by not having the representation and something going wrong. So it's one of those things that strongly consider, because why not? If it's not going to cost you any money really out of pocket, then why not have your own agent represent your best interest? It's kind of common sense, I think. At the same time, people make this mistake all the time, and then they regret their decision and get buyer's remorse. Yes, even with a new construction home. Great question. You reserve the right. And while we're at it, one last point there, HH, is you also reserve the right to have your own private home inspector throughout the process if you want as well. A lot of builders will sometimes shirk at that or try to give you a hard time about it. All the same, you can have your home inspected start to finish if you want to have it done. Now, those types of home inspections generally are a little bit more pricey because it's a multi-month process. At the same time, you do have that right. And it is something that you would want to work with a buyer agent to help get that negotiated into the contract upfront prior to contracting on the new construction if you want your own home inspector. Okay, so you said thanks, or that's what I thought. Thanks, absolutely, HH. Thanks so much. Office Chair says, do you really get better rates with the builder's lender in terms of closing and upgrade? Okay, so Office Chair, I hope that everything that I went into a moment ago just answered that question. To recap it real quick for you, Office Chair, when you're talking about better rates with the builder's lender in terms of closing and upgrades, it's really dependent on what's being offered. So when we're looking at that, as I mentioned a moment ago in answering HH's question, sometimes the builder's lender will actually increase the rate to offset the amount of incentives provided to you as a prospective buyer. The best way to verify that is to talk to another local loan officer so that you can compare the differences in between the rates. Okay, I see. So yes, you did. Thank you. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that I answered your question. If you have any others, just let me know, okay? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we're just waiting for some other people in the chat that might ask. So let's go into another comment that came in this last week. Claudia Thomas had watched How to Break a Lease to Buy a House, and Claudia said, never tell a landlord you're buying a house. It's just plain silly. They hate that you're moving on to being a homeowner. So yes and no, maybe so, Claudia. At the end of the day, it's always best to keep everybody in the know, because you're going to have to provide a 30-day notice anyways that you intend to vacate, depending on what the laws of your state are. It could be 45 or 60 days in advance. So you might not tell them initially when you're getting going in the home shopping mode. You might not even tell them when you first contract on the property. But when you pass your home inspection, once you get past the home inspection part of the closing process and your home appraisal part, you definitely want to let them know. And because otherwise, you could be on the hook, even if you just say, hey, I'm going to move out next week. Well, you didn't give them 30-day notice. You could still be owing them a rent. And surprisingly enough, perhaps to you, some homeowners some landlords are happy that you're going on to home ownership. I have worked with several people like that their landlord was happy to work with them on it and was happy to see them buy a home. And they just want to know ahead of time so they could find another tenant for the property. That was it. It's very simple. Normally, the more honest we are in a process, the better off that we all are, because nobody felt like they got deceived. Think about it when someone's shooting straight with you and being honest with you. Don't you feel better about it, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything that's happening? We normally do feel better about it, right? Whereas if we feel like someone's trying to get over on us or lie to us, what does it make us feel like? It makes us feel awful and makes us feel vindictive. I mean, let's just call a spade and just do the right thing by just being honest. Okay, what about the builder warranty? Office Chair is asking about what about the builder warranty? Okay, so Office Chair, that's a really good question, because every builder is going to be different with the builder warranties. So what you want to do, and what is normal for a builder to do, is to offer you almost like a 1-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, if you will. And on that bumper-to-bumper warranty, they're not going to cover something if you decide to get mad and you punch a hole in the wall or you kick a hole in the wall. They're not going to cover that. But what they will cover are any things that should have been done to the property in the construction phase prior to closing that you may have noticed as a homeowner living in that property for the first 1 year. Normally, they'll set up a 30-day consult with you after you've been in the house for 30 days. They'll do another one at like 60 or 90 days. They'll do another one midway through at about 180 days, and then one that should be done right before the 1 year mark, which is always best to keep note of that date so that you have them back out to the house 30 to 45 days in advance, just in case there is something to done. So whenever they come in to do those site visits, let's say that the tile or something, there's a problem with the tile or a tile broke, normally they'll fix that because it's almost like a bumper to bumper warranty. So if the microwave goes out, well, they might fix that too. Now, they will tell you that the appliances in these properties are normally have a manufacturer warranty through the manufacturer of those appliances that you can get up to 2 years of a warranty on if you complete the registration with those companies. So what's normal is they have the 1 year like bumper to bumper manufacturer warranty from the builder, right? Or builder's warranty, if you will. 2 years on the appliances if you register for it, and then you'll have a different warranty on some of the components within the home, and then you also have what's called a manufacturer warranty, which strips back all the warranty coverage except for specific items. These are questions that you want to ask up front prior to contracting on it, and it's something that your trusted real estate advisor that should know how to that should be privy to the new construction process should be asking the builder up front. There should be a big list of questions, essentially about 30 different questions your agent should be talking to the real estate agent or the new home builder agent, new home builder agent with to get answered so that we all know what's going on going forward and we understand the terms of the contract, the time frames involved, so that everything gets accomplished and everyone knows what's going on. Okay, you have it in your you have that in your question. You have that question in your binder. Awesome. So I did do another video that was pretty intense on the different questions that Ask a Builder. Obviously, I did one that was pretty simple, it was like 6 questions, but then I also did another one that was like 20 questions. I've also shot a couple of other videos that'll be released later this year about the new construction process with even more detailed questions that you should be considering and things to watch for. Okay, so I'm glad that you added that, office chair. Very good question to add. Okay, HH says, just spoke to a realtor that told me we could use the lender and that raised some red flags. Okay, yes, spoke to, let me go back in the context here. Yes, spoke to a realtor that told me we could use their lender and that raised some red flags. Okay, so if you spoke to a realtor and the realtor was saying that you could use the builder's lender, then they're right. I mean, at the end of the day, you can use whatever lender you choose. It's a matter of you using the lender that you want and understanding the pros and cons of the situation if the builder's lender is providing incentives or not, based upon using the builder's preferred lender. But at the end of the day, again, you as a buyer reserve the right to work with whatever lender that you choose to work with. Now, oftentimes a strong trusted real estate advisor, an experienced trusted real estate advisor will have one or more local loan officers that they work with, and the reason they work with them is because they know that they can do the job and actually close on the loan that they tell you they can close on. It kind of goes without saying that that's what should happen, but in practice it doesn't always happen. So just like finding a good trusted real estate advisor is a lot different than working with a bad agent. It's the same thing is true with the loan officer. Everywhere we go in life, different professionals are either good or they're not. So it's about making sure that you have the right team working for you, because real estate done well and done correctly will keep you from having buyer's remorse, and it will also aid to your success financially going forward into the future by making a well-informed decision that you're happy to live with. Now, real estate done wrong can set you back a decade or more if it ends up being a financial devastation to you because you're quickly got buyer's remorse and you quickly decided you want to sell or buy your house as opposed to buying the right house to begin with. So it's something to think about, something to consider. I mean, there's a lot of loaded things in what I just said that some people may agree with or may not agree with. I'm just sharing with you from personal experience and professional experience of representing those 130 families over the past 5.5 years and the several families I'm working with currently, just from observation and experience of listening to what's most important to them. So that being said, let's see, John Y. Hi, Andrew. Do wire transfers happen before you're at the settlement table or during? That's a really good question, John Y., and I'm glad that you brought it up. So generally, there's going to be different time frames for a wire transfer, and yes, they can happen before the settlement statement settlement table. The first time that you might be doing this is with the deposit of your earnest money. So when you make your earnest money deposit, it's quite common that a lot of buyers wire the funds into the escrow account. That being said, you should have also received wire fraud disclosure advising you to contact the escrow officer when you receive wiring instructions, and you want to ask the escrow officer to verify the account and routing information. You don't want to volunteer this information because we want to make sure that the opposite person on the other side of the phone gives us that information so we can verify what we receive is legit. If it's not legit and something doesn't check out, then it should raise an immediate red flag, and you should get an all new set of wiring instructions and report the issue to your trusted real estate advisor and escrow officer so they can take further action on that by perhaps even reporting it to the FBI's fraud website to have that investigated. Okay. Now, the other time that you're going to be wiring money to closing as a buyer is with your cash to close amount. Now, normally that could happen either the same day as going to the settlement table, or ideally it makes it a lot easier if you're able to do it 3 to 5 days in advance, if at all possible. It really depends on how accurate your estimate settlement statement is going into the closing process, into that settlement table, so that you know how much money to deposit. If you're able to do that ahead of time, it will boycott any issues that could arise right there on the spot if for some reason the wire wasn't able to be released that day and fund on your home loan in the full amount of what you had for cash to close. Cash to close is normally consisting of the remaining balance of your down payment and also the balance of your buyer closing costs, depending on how your deal was structured. So in short, do wire transfers happen before the settlement table? All the time. Now, always make sure that you verify those wiring instructions with the escrow officer, though, okay? So then we have office chair. Okay, I have that question in my binder. Okay, great. Thank you for all your help. You're welcome. It makes sense to you. Absolutely. Good stuff. Gina Contreras, is the listing agent required to tell the buyer's agent when the appraisal will take place? That's actually a really interesting question. And the reason it's interesting, Gina, is the word required. Is the listing agent required to tell a buyer's agent whenever an appraisal take place? Not here in Nevada, they're not. At the same time, a trusted real estate advisor, best practice would be to let them know where it is. But here's why it gets a little bit more interesting, Gina, is because if you're a buyer agent, you're going to know when the appraisal is because the lender ordered the appraiser. And if you're a good buyer agent, then you have a very good conversation and communication, working relationship with that loan officer. You're always going to know these things by staying on top of the entire process. To me, that's why it kind of threw me off a little bit, was because I'm like, it's a no-brainer. I always know when an appraiser is getting ready to go out to the property. I always know when this has been done because I'm monitoring the process no matter whether I'm on the listing side of the house or on the buying side of the house. It is a good thing for a listing agent to let a buyer agent know. It's a very simple text message, very simple email, call, what have you. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer Agent, appraisal is going down Thursday at 10 a.m. Just want to let you know. Then the lender's going to get back with you and let you know when the appraisal was done, what the results of the appraisal were, and then you can move forward from there depending on what the situation may be, okay? But it's a great question. Best practice is yes, they should, but the word required, no, unless the state has that in their local association or state law that they have to notify, no. It's just something that would be good and professional to do, definitely best practice. HH, I got it. Thanks. Awesome, HH. Office chair, thank you for explaining the closing settlement table. You're welcome. Jay Johnson, we are trying to get a house and we're looking for wise counsel and what proper procedures or protocol we need to take as well, first-time homebuyers. Okay, so Jay, I see what you're doing. Sometimes it's fun when these comments come in either on the channel or during the live stream, and I'm trying to read them for the first time out. Sometimes typos, whatever. So Jay, when we're talking about what you should do, go back and look at the home buying playlist on my channel. You'll be extremely well prepared for purchasing a home. Make sure that you're Googling your agent, you're checking their ratings, their reviews, and their past sales performance. I've made an entire video on how to do that. Of course, I'm always available to help you find a top agent near you. All you have to do is send me a direct email, and I'll send you a list of questions I need you to answer to best assist you. That being said, just by being here, Jay, right now, you're already doing what is wise as a first-time home buyer. Even if you were a 100-time home buyer, you're doing what's prudent and wise now by getting educated on the process. That's the first step. And that's the step that too many people don't take to heart. And then they wonder why things didn't work out, or why a deal blew up on them, or why, they didn't get an agent that they felt confident and comfortable with, because they let their emotions override their logic. They let their emotions override what makes sense to do, which is to slow down, to speed up. Slow down. Hashtag JTAB was like call, right? Hashtag JTAB, just take a breath. Meet with an agent, even if it might not sound like fun to go to an agent's office and meet in person. Review your buyer disclosures first. Review any buyer broker agreements. Review any additional fees that maybe had, like a broker transaction fee, which is very common across the United States. Again, normally ranges between $400 and $1,000 for a broker transaction fee. Asking the agent these things so there's no hidden fees, as sometimes people call them. It can't be hidden if everything's being disclosed up front. Best way to do that is to have a strategy called a buyer consultation meeting, form a game plan moving forward about showings of properties and what's most important to your home. We'll look at the multiple listing service in the office with the agent so you can quickly temper the realities of the market. Oftentimes people go to the big websites like Zillow or something and they're wondering, well, I saw this house was available and I like that house, but then you're telling me on the multiple listing service, based upon what I've shared with you, that that home isn't in that search report. Why? Well, because if you share that criteria with the agent in the office, they're going to put it into multiple listing service, which is 100% accurate 100% of the time. So if you're off by 1 square foot, it's not going to show. So that's where the clarity of purpose comes into really knowing what you want. And I've made a lot of videos on how to find your ideal home, questions to ask, exercises that you can use. In addition to that, here in a couple of weeks, you're going to have a really loaded video full of a huge amount of information coming out that's called How to Find the Best Neighborhood for You. Now, you'll definitely want to watch that one, and you'll want to save every one of those links that I put into that video, because there's a huge amount of information in that video. So please go back to the first time homebuyer video that I made for 2019. Save all these links. As you get ready as a first time home buyer, refer back to them as you have questions, and also go ahead and identify the trusted real estate advisor that you want to work with now so you can begin that conversation now and learning the home buying process in your area. I would suggest that it's wise to do this 3 to 24 months in advance. Yes, up to 2 years in advance. It's a good idea to establish this relationship so you know what to expect and you guys can keep in touch. You can ask questions when you have them of your local real estate market as far as market conditions, trends, current buying strategy or offer strategy of what's working, what's not working, how the local real estate market is doing in the price segment that you're looking at. It's one thing to make this conversation, to look at market conditions based upon the whole. It's another thing to start breaking it down and stratifying it by price points, where you could have appreciating markets in some price points, depreciating markets in others. So, but the whole market might be going up or the whole market might be going down. But when you stratify the price range that you're looking at, you can get a clearer picture of what prices are really doing in the home price range that you're looking at. So establish that relationship with a trusted real estate advisor as soon as possible and start learning about the home buying process in your area and the disclosures that you'll need to be aware of moving forward. Doing so will even better prepare you as a first-time home buyer to making the right choice in your new home. I hope that's helpful to you, and I would love to hear back from you as you get going, along with any other ideas as you're going through the first-time home buying process, about videos that you may have in mind that I have not already shot. Just for reference, I have made almost 500 videos today that's released, so there is a lot. So if you go into the home buying playlist, you're going to see a lot of information. Okay, Gina, do you happen to know what is the lender's commission and where it comes from? Okay, so the lender's commissions are different based upon the lending brokerages that they work with. It is entirely customary that the 2% to the 2.5% of the transaction, or at least ways the loan amount, would be the lender's commission. That's something that's paid through them through the brokerage. Generally, when you're looking at buyer closing costs, it is not part of that amount. The loan origination fee is part of that amount. So how the lenders get paid is through their brokerage that they work for. Now, beyond that, I'm not a loan officer, so I would be remiss to tell you exactly how different loan officers get paid through their brokerage. But I do know that when you look at your buyer closing cost, it isn't paying your lender's commission. It is paying your loan origination fee, which is entirely different. So, and it is paying different closing costs. Now, 2%, now it's generally, let me back that up real quick, because in general, buyer closing costs across the United States are 2% to 4% on average. I normally suggest to people, if it's not a real estate attorney state, meaning that there's not a need for a real estate attorney, to budget 3% for your buyer closing costs. When we're talking about buyer closing cost at 3%, what that would mean is if you're looking to buy a $500,000 home, you multiply it by 3%, you need to have $15,000 ready to go just for your buyer closing cost. And that's aside from your home inspection, your home appraisal, and your down payment amount, okay? Now, when we're looking at that 3%, if you're wondering where the lion's share of that goes, it goes to you, the buyer. And think about this for a moment. When you close on a home, you normally don't have your first mortgage payment for how long? 45 days to 60 days after closing. Well, why is that? And you think that the lender's just giving you a huge break or something? No. Those 3%, about 2% of that 3% of the buyer closing costs are essentially impounding your monthly mortgage and the payments that you have for your principal, your interest, property tax, homeowners insurance, and any other fees that was believed that needed to be impounded for that period of time to be paid from your closing costs going forward for that time period of 45 to 60 days, hence why you don't have a mortgage note. So what goes into the extra 1%? Well, there's your loan origination fee. There's any real property transfer tax. There's any taxes that your state, city, or whatever may have as it pertains to real estate transactions in your area, okay? So it's important to know where that goes. So when you look at it saying, hey, I'm going to ask a seller to pay for my buyer closing costs, well, depending on the market conditions, that number one may or may not be realistic. But number two, why would a seller want to pay their seller closing costs, which is normally somewhere between 6 and 9% of a sales price, and then pay a buyer's closing cost knowing that it's really paying for your mortgage for the first couple months? So that's why we have to get real and we have to get honest and be prepared for the true process here and understand seller closing costs are called seller closing costs for a reason, just as buyer closing costs are called buyer closing costs for a reason. For a full breakdown of what your buyer closing costs look like, you might want to talk to your trusted real estate advisor and loan officer and get what's called an estimated settlement statement, at least ways a line-by-line item, so that you know what's being paid for. Now, your loan officer will have a lot of that information. When you get into contract, your escrow officer will have all the other state and local fees that get assessed into the part of the buyer closing process as well, as far as your buyer closing costs are concerned. Now, I have made a video. It's about 21 minutes on just buyer closing costs, what you should know. I cap over quite a bit of the details of what you can expect to pay, as long with certain amounts that seem to be on average to the best of my ability to discern on a national level to try to help you make sense of that. I'd suggest you go back and watch that video so that you're even more well prepared and educated about buyer closing costs. Really, really good question, and very happy that you brought that up. Air 2 Smith, Woodland Hills, California. Air 2, thank you for being here. Office chair, is it better to have a letter of approval in hand, or if you have been told the amount you and your spouse qualify for before you start looking at homes? Office chair, most definitively, extremely clearer than Baccarat crystal here, pre-approval letter, meaning that the loan officer has verified your income, assets, credit, and employment situation. If you don't have that, it does not matter if they wrote you a piece of paper saying that you're qualified for up to $1 million. But if it has not been verified, then how do you know you're really qualified or approved for that amount? You don't, because there's a lot of variables that go into home loans. And I stress the importance of a loan pre-approval letter all the time. Easiest way to know that you got one is, did you submit your last 2 years tax returns? Did you submit 1 month of your pay stubs? Did you submit 2 months of your bank statements for all your accounts? Did you share any of your investment account information with that loan officer? And was that information verified? If the answer to that question is yes, then you can take a breath and have peace that you likely have a loan pre-approval in your hand and you can shop with confidence. The reason that this can be different is that a lot of companies, and this is something, by the way, that will get me going because I find it deceitful and dishonest and it just drives me bonkers. Two things in this world will piss me the hell off. The number one is inequity, and the second one is injustice. And that's why I start getting upset and bring back the Marine Corps ways in a way when I start thinking about some of the deceit out there that you see online in television and on adverts on the radio, what have you, about loan pre-approval. Call us and we can approve you in as little as 5 minutes. They can't. It's a physical impossibility to do that because it's not enough time to verify all the information, especially if you didn't provide it right out of the gate. So it's the reason that they do these things is because they want to get you on the hook with an understanding of human psychology, that if you take small commitments, then you're likely to say yes to the bigger commitment, which is them being your loan officer when the time comes. If you go out and you shop with the loan pre-qualification letter, you will be quite surprised at how big of a difference that can be. If you were approved for $1 million on that pre-qualification letter, and then you get into push come to shove in contract, and you only approved at 500,000, that just put a horrible taste in your mouth. It just derailed the whole deal, and it's something that could have been prevented by having a loan pre-approval. So in short, please make sure that you're working with a local loan officer. Please make sure that you're getting a loan pre-approval prior to shopping, because I personally in practice will not show a single property without a buyer having one. There's no point. If you're going out shopping for a house, shouldn't we know what's in the bank? Yes. And shouldn't we know that it's been verified and done correctly? Yes. Is it fun and sexy, the idea of having to go through this before looking at homes? No. But you either know if you're going to buy a home or not. So if it's part of the process, following the process will help you be successful. So let's get it done. All right. I see a whole bunch of comments coming in. So let's move on to the next. Okay. Let me see. Excuse me. Jay Johnson says, thank you so much, my friend. You have been such a help, and just your knowledge of all of it, such a blessing. Thank you so much, and you have a blessed morning. Thank you, Jay. Really, really appreciate that, and I hope you have a blessed day as well. Office Chair says, okay, thank you. Thank you, Office Chair. Andy Cal says, hey, Andrew, today's been a good day. We locked in our rate for the new construction at 3,625 with an adjustable rate mortgage, 1515 and 0 points. We decided to forego the builder incentives because the rates were low. You know what, Andy? 3,625 is like crazy low. So I'm glad that you were able to hook that up. So that 1515 that you were talking about through that credit union that you were mentioning the last time you were live with us really clearly works really, really wonderfully for that 1515 program. So it is an adjustable rate mortgage, and it's good to hear that you really don't have to worry about your interest rate climbing for the first 15 years, during which time you actually may end up refinancing that or sell that house and move on to another one. So it's so much point spread there. But at 3.625, when the average rate across the United States right now seems to be somewhere between 5.25 and 5.5 for most home buyers, depending on their FICO scores and DTIs and their actual situation, a 3.625, I mean, that is like smoking stupid low. So I'm glad, I'm really glad that you got that. And I would have been right there with you for going incentives for that kind of rate, because that is a massive savings. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, Super Long Care. Hey, Andrew, just want to say hi to you. Super Long Care, great to hear from you, my friend. Hope all's going well for you and your family, and look forward to chatting with you again soon. Andy Cow says, hope you're having a fantastic day. Just want to share the good news. Thank you for jumping on and sharing the good news with us, Andy. It's always great to hear from you, my friend. Office Chair says, Andy Cow, congrats. Andy Cow says, thank you at Office Chair. Good luck on the home buying process. It's rewarding and fun. Tyler Heath, you look like a young Ronnie Collins. Do you know Ronnie Collins? Tyler Heath, no, I don't, but I'll have to Google it. One of the comments that came in today called me somebody named Dwight Schwarte. I've been called, what is the one I normally get called? Oh, Matt Damon. I normally get called Matt Damon, but Ronnie Collins is a new one for me, so I'll definitely check that one out since I don't know who that is, Tyler, but thank you for bringing it up. All the same, I'm just Andrew Finney, and that's who I am, and I guess there's other people that might look like me, different way of looking at it, right? Different perspective there, but all the same, lots of fun. Thank you for that. Mason Stevens, I'm thinking of buying a cabbage house. How do you suggest I go about it? I don't know what a cabbage house is, to be honest with you, Mason. So a little bit more details there would be great. What houses do cabbages grow the best in? Okay. Let's see, a little bit of silliness there. You're balding. Yes, I am. Gerald Patrick, fun and sexy. Tyler Heath, is there a black couch across from me? No, there's not a black couch across from me. Adam Taylor, I use Bosley. It should work. You should try it. Yeah, I don't really care if I go bald or not, to be honest with you. It is what it is. Those are big glasses. Okay, thank you. Clevin Timms just jumped in. Do lenders shop around your hazard monthly payment, assuming this means mortgage insurance, or is that the homeowner's insurance? So Clevin Timms, that's a really good question. I'm glad that you brought it up. So yes, lenders generally will shop around for the hazard insurance, and they definitely will have different mortgage insurance providers that will be able to assist you. So it's really, really cool that you brought that up. It's something that you might want to talk to the local loan officer that you're working with, Clevin Timms, to see what their process is for the hazard insurance. And in specific, the mortgage insurance premium or the private mortgage insurance, that is normally a party that they can go through as well to try to get you a better rate as well. So it's something that you want to ask them about. That is a really good question. I'm glad that you brought it up though. Homeowner insurance is something completely different. Now, will your local loan officer help you with your homeowner's insurance and introduce you to an insurance agent if needed? Absolutely. But you also have the ability to procure your own homeowner's insurance on your own. Geico or something like that is something that you could do too. So it's really cool. Just make sure that you have it prior to closing, and early on in the process, it's smart to start getting an idea of your insurance cost and making sure that you have the appropriate coverage. Have made entire videos dedicated just to homeowners insurance to help you make sense of that. You might want to go check that out as well. Great question, so thank you for that. Okay, Revolver Oscillate, you talk with the swift confidence of a young preacher boy. Your voice is soothing. Revolver Oscillate, thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy the swiftness and of the voice. Joe Patrick, why are you mad, my guy? Oh, I'm definitely not mad at all. Every day is an awesome day. So I'm really never ever mad, to be honest with you. As a former Marine, I think I left my mad day. I learned how to control my emotions long, long ago. So it takes a lot to make me mad again. Two things: inequity and injustice. And that's just because I don't believe we as people should be hurting other people, so to speak. I believe that we should always be giving our best and helping other people succeed, not putting them down. So that's the two things that'll piss me off. That's a different story though. Okay, so Tyler Heath, why is your face red? I might be a little bit hot in the office, or maybe I caught a little bit of too much sun recently. Again, I am in Las Vegas, Nevada, so could just be the sun. Don't be embarrassed of bawling. Do not. Matt Nelson here from my friend. Hey, Andrew, I'm a bit late to the live stream today, but glad to be here. Matt, always glad to have you here with us. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you being here. And I hope you're enjoying a great day. We know that you're normally on your lunch break when you hop on, so thanks so much for being here. Adam Taylor, I'm just trying to help my friend. Thank you. German M, what is assigned school? Looks like interesting comments today on some of these. All right. No, I don't know what a cabbage house is, Adam. I have to look it up after this. It's a house where cabbages normally grow. I found a lot in Oregon. I just don't know how to go about buying one. Now that is interesting. So I did not know about that. Learn something new all the time. That's one of the great things about going live and having people jump on from around the country and around the world, sharing their experiences with real estate with us. I had not ever heard of a cabbage house before. So it's where cabbages normally grow. To me, that sounds like a greenhouse or a hydroponics area. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. You can always set up a greenhouse or a hydroponics farm inside your house where you could grow cabbage if you want. Hydroponics are freaking awesome. So anyways, that's a different story. But thank you for sharing that with us. Learn something new all the time. Clevin Tim says, thank you. You're quite welcome, Clevin Tim's. Joe Patrick, a cabbage house is a special house made especially for my special cabbages. And most of the time they have to be in Oregon because they have the best weather. Awesome, Joe. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay. Okay, so it seems like the Saucy Zaya is definitely like a troll or something here. So we're gonna go ahead and take you out of there. That's inappropriate, Saucy. And if I see inappropriate comments, again, rule number one is that you're in a safe place and to please be respectful and polite. If you're not, I will swiftly ban you from the channel. It has nothing to do with being angry or not. But again, it is a ground rule to keep this on the up and up and keep this a safe environment for people that actually want to share and to learn something and to help us learn and grow together. Just for reference, I will block you real quick if I catch you trolling the channel. Okay, Matt Nelson, I've heard that's where Kevin, okay. Clevin Timms, you have a troll, Andrew, may want to remove the person. Yep, already on it. Clevin Timms just talked about it, but thank you for pointing that out as well. Gina Contreras, how do you block people on the comments? Lots of laughs, it's getting a bit annoying. Just did it. If it's not a real comment, then normally we can pick it apart pretty quick. I just was in the process of answering the other questions whenever I turned back around and then started reading through some of the crap that person was saying. Anyways, yeah, they're blocked now and they're actually hid from the channel, which means they can't even comment on any videos on the channel at this point going forward. So boom, banned, gone. Gina Contreras, oh, we just did that. Andy Cow, please just ban them. I did, Andy. So boom, like you said, hashtag JTAB, just take a breath. Absolutely. Get it done, right? Bobby Curtis, you and Dave Ramsey are the best. Thank you, Bobby. I do feel good to be in Dave Ramsey's, to be compared to Dave Ramsey or put in the same sentence there. Dave Ramsey does a lot of wonderful things. So super excited about that. Definitely some things I would not completely agree with him on, but most of the stuff that he shares with people about financial education, how to make sense of things, absolutely love what he teaches. I listen to him myself. Definitely appreciate his passion for helping people in the way that he does it, and hopefully someday we could be doing the same thing on. I'll be able to be on that level as well, to better help people and have 8 million subscribers listening to podcasts and live streams all the time. That'd be freaking awesome. Anyways, Kobe, thank you for that, Bobby, by the way. Thank you. Kobe Higginson, is credit the only thing separating FHA and conventional loans? Now, Kobe, that's a really fun question, and I'm glad that you brought it up. So, credit scores, sometimes there's a misconception of the role of the credit score in the home buying process. The role of the credit score most definitely will help you qualify for certain loan programs, but they also impact the rate of your loan. The biggest thing that could be is if you have like a basic level, let's call it like a 660 or a credit score or something, you would be qualified for a conventional, you'd be qualified for an FHA. If you're active duty or a veteran, you'd be qualified for a VA home loan. There's a lot of different loans that you could qualify for underneath that, having a 660 or above, right? Or 640 and above in a lot of cases. So with that being said, if you have that credit score, then what's the separation mark for the different type of loan that you might need to get? That's the role of the debt to income ratio that plays that. So the credit score will help you qualify for a certain loan program and a certain interest rate depending on your credit score, right? But it's the debt to income ratio that plays into how much home loan you can get approved for underneath that loan program. I make that I'm bringing this up and trying to tie it back in an easiest possible way to understand, because what happens if you qualify for a 3% down conventional loan or a 3.5% down FHA loan? Which one is going to be better? Well, that's where understanding how the rates are going to play out, how the programs play out, if there's any additional funds being received through a down payment assistance program or what have you that are coming into bear, or if there's any other incentives of that program, how that plays out at the end of the day, and how is that going to impact your payment moving forward. Now, what I would tell you, excuse me, what I would tell you is that it's oftentimes better, if at all possible, to get a conventional loan for the long term as compared to an FHA loan. There's a lot of pros and cons to this, so it's important to go back on some of the other videos I've created, but I'll try to recap it quickly for you. Is an FHA has what's called a mortgage insurance premium. A conventional loan has what's called a private mortgage insurance. They look, smell, and behave a lot the same as each other, with one major difference. A mortgage insurance premium, which goes to an FHA loan, does not drop off of that loan for the life of that loan. A private mortgage insurance will drop off of that loan when you hit what's called 20% loan to value ratio, or essentially an 80% loan to value ratio. So that when you look at this as 20%, where's that 20% coming from? If you put 5% down, there's 5 of that 20%, right? Now let's say your home appreciates over the next 5 years by 15%. Now you're at 20%. Now you could call your loan officer and ask them to drop the private mortgage insurance, and they can drop it once you hit that 20% equity stake in your property, or have what sometimes is called 80% loan to value ratio. Once you hit that, you can drop it. If you hit the same point with an FHA loan with that mortgage insurance premium, it doesn't drop for the life of the loan. So what are your options? You'd have to refinance that loan into a conventional loan, or or some other type of loan product, normally a conventional loan, to drop it so that you don't no longer have it. Now, the pro of an FHA loan is obviously it's helpful to help you get into your home. It's a little bit easier to qualify in a lot of cases as compared to a conventional loan. So it's important to understand that as well. So I believe, and I really do thank you for bringing that up, Kobe. There's a lot going on there. So with that, I would suggest that you talk to a local loan officer and explore your options with whatever your credit score and debt to income ratio situation is, to make a well-informed decision that's right for you. All the same, that is a fantastic question. I'm glad you brought it up. Now my mind's going about maybe getting one of the loan officers on with me and discussing this matter in a video to be released later this year. So that's a really good one. Thank you for bringing that up. Terry G says, I just watched your video on new construction homes. Do you have any other advice? Yes, I have an entire playlist on new construction homes. And when you're talking about any other advice, it just really depends on what you're talking about. I say that, Tara, because I've made almost 500 videos that have been released on the channel right now. There are a lot of questions answered, and there is a lot of information shared, just as we share in the live stream. The live stream, since we've been doing this, we'll be asked any kind of question all over the place, and there's huge amounts of information that we're covering and other things that we're learning from different people on the channel that share with us too from around the nation. So it's really fun stuff. So Tara, it really depends. Earlier on in today's live stream, I'm not sure if you were here or not. If you go back and replay from the beginning, we were talking about new construction and different things to do with builders and such and questions to ask. You might want to go back on that and definitely go through the new construction playlist. It is the video that I have in there. I believe I have 4 or 5 of them in there about new construction right now. And I have made some more that will be released this year for about new construction as well. After you watch those, let me know. And if you're looking for any specific advice, just hit me up and let me know, Tara, right here in the live stream. It'd be great. Either I can answer it for you or I can get back to you on it by making another video about the question you may have. But thank you for that, Tara. Kobe says thank you. Thank you, Kobe, for being here, and thank you for the wonderful question. Air2 Smith gives us a thumbs up. Air2, there's your thumbs up. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your support, my friend. Okay, so Gabriel Adu had watched Buying a New Construction Home, 20 Tips to Build Upon. So going back to Tara, there's a video if you haven't watched it. That one is a longer video, and yes, the 20 tips are very salient to you if you're buying new construction. Gabriel says, excellent tips. Never the thought to ask about leaving leftover supplies in the garage. Love it. Lisa Mack was watching 6 mortgage scams exposed. Home buyers beware. Lisa Mack says, why are you not my agent? Well, if you're here in Vegas, I could help you out. And then Lisa Mack says, question, Andrew, should I borrow from a bank or a private loan company? Also, who do I talk to for a first-time home buyer program or grant? So that's a really good question, Lisa. In short, the way that you would look at for the bank or the private loan company depends on your comfort level and what you believe is best for you. They all have pros and cons as far as how that works. So you want to review both your options. If in question, just get an estimate of, get a loan estimate from each, compare it, make sure it makes sense for you, and make a well-informed decision based upon what you're most comfortable with. As far as who do you talk to about a first-time homebuyer grant program, a lot of trusted real estate advisors may know of those programs in their area, but ultimately you'll need to have that conversation with a loan officer in your area about those programs to see if you qualify for them. There are a lot of qualifications that go into some of those programs, so you'll want to make sure that you're able to achieve that and learn what those qualifications are. Adrian Hill says, would it be smart to liquidate my 401k to use as a down payment on a house and closing costs? Adrian, that's a personal decision. That's why I put out that video, how to use your 401k to buy a house last week, is I've been getting asked questions about how to use 401ks and such. And it really depends on your personal situation, what you're most comfortable with, and also understand the pros and cons of the expectations of liquidating a 401k and the repayment that may need to happen as a result of which. And it also depends if you have employer match and contribution. There's a lot of variables that go into it. Would it be smart? It's ultimately your call as far as what makes most sense to you in your life. What I would suggest is that you get the facts about you, understand the pros and cons of it, weigh the pros and cons, given where you are in your life right now, what makes most sense to you, and then move forward with that decision after you've gathered the facts. A good place to start is that 401k video that I put out last week. Watch it, take note of it, then take down some of the questions that I proposed that you ask in that, and talk it over with a local loan officer, talk it over with your employer if they're doing any kind of a 401k match with you, and ensure that you understand the consequences, the good and bad, of using your 401k. It's a great question. Thanks. You're very welcome, Jay Martel. I'm glad that helped you. Kirisano Twanega watched Rent to Own Homes Pros and Cons and says, why the hell would I rent to own if you have to pay an option fee? Might as well get a house, not rent to own. Great point. Again, put out the video pros and cons of it just so that you understand what's going on. Sometimes rent to own sounds sexy. It's not necessarily as sexy in practice. You always got to weigh the pros and cons. Clevin Tams 24, first-time homebuyer loans seem to be gold. However, I only plan to live in my house for 7 to 10 years, as it is harder to get a second. Is it harder to get a second home? So Clevin Tams, or is it just having the 20% down and having to use FHA since my first home is conventional. So it's a really good point. So if you're using a first-time homebuyer program, but you already own a home, you're probably not going to be able to get the first-time homebuyer program. A true definition, or at least it's a technical definition of a first-time homebuyer, is actually quite surprising to a lot of people. It just means that you have not owned, the word is owned, a home for a certain period of time, that period being 3 years. So if you've not owned a home for the previous 3 years, technically, as a first-time homebuyer definition, you could be considered a first-time homebuyer. That's a conversation I had with the local loan officer just to see how that plays out. Now, when you're talking about you only plan to live in your house for 7 to 10 years, is it harder to get a second home loan? So if you intend to keep the first home, rent it out or something like that, is it harder to get a second home? Well, you're normally going to need a higher credit score, and you're going to need to come up with more money for the down payments. Now, sometimes they'll let you get away with as low as like 5% or 10%. And most definitely, in a lot of cases, that's going to be a conventional loan. In fact, in all cases, now that I'm thinking about it, it's going to be one in a lot of cases if you have the FHA loan on the first property. Now, your option would be with that first property, you could refinance it into a conventional loan, reuse an FHA loan for an FHA loan type. But at the same time, when you're talking about a first-time home buyer program for the second use of it, that's not going to happen if you already own a home and you've owned a home inside of that 3 years since the last time that you owned a home. So, I mean, that's a lot of wording going on. There's a lot of like wordsmithing, if you will, essentially with that. Just know at the end of the day, if you're getting a second home loan, normally it's going to come with a slightly higher interest rate. There's going to be more of a down payment expectation, and it's going to be a situation that you need to review. Now, staying at home for 7 to 10 years and moving, completely normal to do. Average length of residence in the United States right now is right around 11 years if you average it all out across the United States. So 7 to 10 years makes a lot of sense. Here in Vegas, a lot of people sell every 5 to 7 years or less. So it makes a lot of sense that you might be considering that into the future. Now, what you should do, Clevin Timms, is when the time is upon you to make that decision, is to decide whether you wish to keep that property or cash out your equity and use it into the new home. Only you can make that decision. It's good to think about it now, absolutely. Just be advised that whenever 7 to 10 years in the future in your life, your thought process may be different. So continue gathering the information and the answers to your question as you are now, and keep it in mind as you move forward, thinking through what's best for you in the future. Adrian Hill, thank you so much, Andrew. I will go and watch that video. Awesome, Adrian. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, if there's anything specific that I've not already made, please let me know, and I'll be happy to create another video about it. Andy Cow, FHA loans seem to come with PMI, just to be aware. FHA loans, Andy, that's a good point. Again, we talked about that briefly. FHA loans come with MIP, which is like PMI, but different. MIP is a mortgage insurance premium. PMI is a private mortgage insurance. They look, smell, and taste a lot the same, but they are different. And where they're different is a big difference. That's why I did make a specific video about PMI versus MIP. It's like the one that I had the boxing gloves on. If anybody's curious and wants to get into the details of each of those, check out that video and let me know if you have any questions. But my guess is after watching it, you probably won't. Not any questions I could answer. At least you'd want to have a conversation with a local loan officer at that point. Okay, yeah, absolutely, Andy. But thank you so much for commenting and putting out your information with us. So Clevin Tim, sorry, no, I closed 2/28/2019, first time home buyer. I plan to stay here 10 years. Thanks. Higher credit plus possible higher down payment, etc. Answered my question perfectly. Awesome, Clevin Tim's glad to help. Andrew moved to Houston, Texas. Arizona doesn't deserve me, but I'm in Las Vegas, my friend. Javier, my counterpart in Phoenix, Arizona, is Javier Vidana, that also has a real estate channel that helps people make sense of real estate. He's in Phoenix. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we need you. Haha. Thanks again. Lunch break over. Take care, everyone. Clevin Timms, thanks for joining us on your lunch break. Glad to have you here with us. And looking at that, there's so many comments that have been coming in since we've been doing the higher quality videos. Let me see if I can pick apart. Oh, okay, that's right. Mixed it up. I follow him. Yeah, Javier's great, guys. I don't know if you know of Matt Layton in Virginia. He's also another great guy. We're the three of us are in conversation all the time, anyways. Super cool people. Just a different perspective on real estate, but with the same passion to help people make sense of it. So love those guys. They do wonderful work, and glad they count them as my counterparts in the real estate world, trying to help you make sense of real estate. Okay, let's see. So many comments came in over the last week. With the higher quality videos, seems like the channel is becoming more and more popular. We're already just over an hour. I do have some appointments this afternoon, so I'm quickly scrolling through to see if any of these questions really stand out to me before we end the live stream. Okay, Cheerio Martinez had watched 7 Must Do's before buying a house, and Cheerio says, "Can I buy a house if I'm a co-signer to another mortgage?" In short, yes, but that co-sign amount will be taken into consideration and may be accounted against you on your debt to income ratio. Best way to know for sure, Cheerio Martinez, is to talk to a local loan officer about that and see how that's going to play out for you. Anytime you co-sign for anything, that liability may be counted against you on your debt to income ratios. So just be aware of that. But in short, can you qualify? Yes, if the numbers make sense. A lot of thanks and key points that people are pointing out from the videos. Okay. Okay. So other than repeating the different really sweet comments that everybody made, some of the people that I see the names of frequently, like JVM Interior Design, Janine Hoke, Miss Diva's been watching a lot lately, and a lot of names that I recognize, Chiro Martinez, Clevin Timms, obviously, just a lot of different people that I'm used to seeing in the live stream and making comments on the channel. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I definitely appreciate the comments on the channel. I promise that I am actually working on getting better on responding to the comments as much as possible. At the same time, doing the real estate as a real estate practitioner, trusted real estate advisor, doing this full time as well. It's just a matter of trying to get it all scheduled in and get everything done that I got to get done in the course of the day. All the same, coming up on 70 minutes now, let's go ahead and wind down the live stream. I want to say thank you to everybody that's been here with us today. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to being live with you again next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please tell your friends, your family, or everybody you know about it. If they want to hop on, join us. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm sure the more people that we get involved on the live stream, the more engaging and even the more fun it'll be together. Now, in between now and the next time, I'm wishing you and yours a lifetime full of love, wealth, abundance, and happiness. And please be the reason somebody smiles today. Enjoy a beautiful day, and we'll see you soon.